Hello. This is my project one. Uh, Something along the lines of a pile of pieces assignment for my game studies one class. So, um, what game are we gonna be talking about with this assignment? Well, I was thinking about doing Team Fortress 2 or Eco or Hades or something along those lines of games. But recently, I've been playing a lot of Left 4 Dead, and I think there's a lot of room to be said about the game, specifically when it comes to this specific project. So, one of the first things that we're going to talk about is you know why it says here. It says find out how and why your pile of pieces can be called a game. So, Left 4 Dead, Left 4 Dead 2 is a four-player co-op multiplayer game. This game is designed for your teammates and you yourself as the player to work together to reach a common goal, which usually is just going to the end of the level. That is basically the goal most of the time. Sometimes in some levels it could be get a bunch of canisters into a single like car, um, or just surviving out until a helicopter comes, something on the lines. But there's always a common goal that all the players have. This is also a zombie game, and what makes this zombie game different from a lot of other just co-op zombie games, which there are a ton, is they have uh, a thing called special infected, and the design of special infected are to force teammates to help one another or to work together. Um, so what I mean by that is there are a lot of different types of special infected, and each one is drastically different and does different things to play to the players. And I'm gonna go over like each one and how each special infected like influences the team's dynamics in a certain way. So the first one, and probably the most easiest one, is the tank. The tank is basically the biggest threat in Left 4 Dead. It is basically seen as a boss in the campaign. And what it does is it basically forces the entire team to work together to focus fire on the tank. Um, yeah, if your team does not focus on the tank, your entire team is gonna die. And so basically, you are all forced to work together to focus on the tank and get the tank dead as quickly as possible. If he is not dead, your team is gonna quickly die, like quickly, like one on one. There's ways of doing it, like a player having a Molotov can very much help when it comes to trimming down the tank's health. There's also other things, just like general focus fire, but it forces the team to work together. It basically is a rally call in a sense of like the team is like, okay, everyone, let's focus on the tank. Another special infected is the smoker. The smoker has the ability to drag one teammate away from the group, forcing teammates to look out for one another in case one is dragged away. Usually, smokers are spawned behind your group, and usually they're like field of view. So usually when someone is like lagging behind or the team isn't really paying attention to someone, usually a smoker is spawned in and they drag that teammate away, leaving them to be very vulnerable and isolated. Which also the smoker also just completely immobilizes them, so they can't fight back. They can't even move. They're basically dragged away from their entire team, and usually they're basically being ganged up upon amongst other zombies or other infected. So basically, they are very screwed, and they need someone or the team themselves or anyone to go back all the way to go back and save their teammate. So not paying attention to a smoker or to your teammates getting dragged away from a smoker could easily destroy a good team composition. That is why it's always incredibly important. It basically forces the team to always be aware of who is where everyone's at, if there's an enemy behind them. Just in general, be aware of the environment. Another character is the hunter. The hunter is probably one of the most aggressive special effectives in the game. I could be wrong. People have their opinions, but I generally think the hunter is very much a in your face enemy. Where when he spawns, he's going to be jumping towards you, and if you do not react to the hunter, you're going to get pinned down, and there's nothing you're going to do. You're going to lose a lot of health. Um, Hunter's a very easy character to really deal with. What makes the hunter so scary is if you're isolated or your team is just not paying attention, because the hunter could basically just pin you down and easily just deplete all your health. But he's very much a simple special effective. But he has the same similar design philosophy than the smoker. While the smoker can basically change the positioning of a team's composition, the hunter is basically meant to keep players in check to actually make sure that your team isn't being destroyed or isn't being pinned down. Similar to the jockey as well, but the jockey has the ability to drag the teammate away from a team. But his whole like getup is similar to the hunter, where you have to go in and attack a player. But the jockey's differences is he jumps onto like a player's back and can basically manipulate their movement. So you can basically lead them off an edge, or lead them into fire, or leading them into more special infected, or infected in general. So the jockey is more of a supportive character to the infected and can very much work well at creating chaos between the teams. So characters like the jockey, hunter, smoker, they're basically meant to force the team to look out for one another, to make sure that their team is no one is isolated. Because if one is isolated, your entire team is forced to go back and save that person or one person, and it creates a lot more of an unstable team composition. Another special infected as well is the spitter. Now the spitter is different from obviously what I said before between like the jockey, hunter, and smoker. The spitter forces teammates to actually split apart, forcing each player to reposition and keep track of which teammate it went off to. So basically, the spitter shoots out a acidic projectile, and it will basically be planted on the ground, and will basically be an AOE attack, right? So if the player is standing on the acid, they will take a lot of damage. That's what I mean by it literally forces your teammate to split apart. If you're all bunched together, always being close together, the spitter is meant to basically force your team to split apart, right? So it's another way to keep players to always keep track of each other, but instead it's more of a way to kind of break, um certain metas when it comes to things. Like people will think like, oh, if we all just stick together and move, we'll be fine. Obviously, the spitter is meant to break that, so it kind of creates more tension between the players and such. But also, it still promotes the idea of working together, because you have to keep eye on like, okay, where did everyone went? All right, let's all reposition. Let's come back together. So that's the point of the spitter. The charger, though, is a very interesting special infected. The charger charges into a player, removing them from the group, forcing the group to go back and save the teammate. This also forces the team to split up, forcing players to keep track of one another. So what I mean by that is when the charger charges into a teammate, usually that teammate will get pinned and will basically be dragged all the way until the charger stops. So basically, your one teammate is all the way on the other side. So your team has to go back and save them, right? Another thing as well is if your entire team is clunched up together, the charger could actually push back all the teammates like around them. So it actually can also just kind of split the team apart and send everyone kind of like flying away if he charges into one enemy. So the charger is literally meant to, as similar to the spitter, split the team apart and kind of forces all the teammates to keep track of one another and where they've been. And for the last one is the boomer. The boomer pukes on the player, blinding them, and forcing a horde of zombies to attack the puked on player. Um, this also forces teammates to rid the horde and protect their blinded teammates. So when a boomer comes out, and there's like two ways the boomer can basically quote unquote like puke on your teammates. It can either be a manual projectile where he actually just vomits onto your teammates, or if you are close to the boomer and he dies, he will explode, still getting the puke onto the player. And when the puke gets on the player, basically an entire horde of zombies will attack the player. Um, and that player who's puked on cannot see anything. So that player is left incredibly vulnerable. So you, as someone who wasn't puked on, have to defend your teammate, because there's going to be a horde of zombies coming in, and if you do not get rid of this horde of zombies, you're going to deal with like you're going to have a pretty bad time. So the boomer forces players to protect their teammates and work together. But the whole point of explaining every single special infected is to show how dynamic each special infected is, but also the core idea of special infecteds are meant to screw over the team or screw over individual players, leaving them incapable to fight back, forcing your teammates to work together. Um, Also, every player does have a one primary weapon, one secondary weapon, one throwable item, one health pack or defibrillator, and one pill or syringe, right? So you also do have like a mass array of like items and weapons the player can choose from. Obviously, things like primary and secondary weapons are completely optional for the player on what playstyle they want. Do they want a shotgun? Do they want a automatic rifle? Do they want a desert eagle? Or do they want dual pistols or a melee? Each one has the pros and cons. Obviously, for the throwable items, they each one actually has a very volatile use. Like the grenade can grab the attention of hordes of zombies. The Molotov is great at AOE attacks and is really good against tanks. The Bio Jar is just a really good way to mark enemies. It's also good for tanks, but it's also good at grabbing the attention of horde zombies away from enemies and such. And also, in general, can mark enemies to be attacked by their own, I guess, quote unquote allies or whatever. Another thing as well is between like the health pack and the defibrillator. The health pack can heal yourself or heal your teammate, and but the defibrillator can actually revive a dead teammate. So if a teammate dies, right, and if you have a defibrillator, you can bring him back from the dead, which is really helpful and actually could be very volatile when it comes to actually living and surviving. Because once a teammate is dead, you are down one player, leaving your team a lot more defenseless. Because the more players that are alive, the more you can look out for one another. So it is very important to have a defibrillator if you can find it. But that player is sacrificing uh their own their own health, their own security in a sense. Because if that player is weakened or gets attacked, they don't really have a health pack to keep them back, keep them alive. So that's why it's very important to be very generous when it comes to your healing. If a player doesn't have a health pack and they're low on health, you should probably heal them because at some point you're going to get pinned and screwed over, and they are going to probably save your life at some point. Same thing with the pills and the syringe. Really, it's just more of an option to the player. Um, would you rather have more health, or do you want to move quicker? You know, so it's really up to the player's choice on that. So that is basically the most simplest way. The pile of pieces of Left 4 Dead 2, right? Um, I'm hoping that it explains it well, but that's the overall design of the game, and you can see how what the main design or the main point of Left 4 Dead 2 is, and it's basically supposed to be team cooperation and the idea of the game forcing basically your teammates to work together. Now, for the second question, how does your game create fun possibilities or goes against the classic idea of fun in some ways? And I basically just said it. But Left 4 Dead 2 makes the idea of babysitting your teammates actually fun and rewarding for the player, which is crazy because often and a lot of times the worst part of multiplayer games, honestly speaking, is working with a bunch of strangers. It is the worst part of any multiplayer game because usually players that don't know what they're doing or are a hinder to the team ruin the experience for everyone else. Now, obviously, for Left 4 Dead 2, right, if a teammate is getting pinned by a hunter, obviously that's not a good thing. But it actually makes it really fun because now you create this interesting dynamic where you as the player aren't just thinking about yourself, you're thinking about your teammates, right? And you're actually rewarded for keeping your teammates safe and healthy. So what it does is it creates a satisfaction to the player to actually want to help your teammates out, because subvertedly, if you're helping your teammates out, you're helping yourself out. And usually when it comes to designing a multiplayer game, most of the most successful and fun multiplayer games that I've come across are usually multiplayer games that promote the idea of accommodating for the player's own interest. right? And Left 4 Dead is a game that is designed for you to help your own teammates out for your own interest, which is really cool because oftentimes in multiplayer games or cooperative games or team-based games or whatever games, right? Nobody really wants to help anyone out. Usually it's like, hey, we're on the team. If you all do your roles fine, we're good, right? And if anyone's lacking, we're gonna rage at you and blame you for the reason why we lose. And no one's gonna have fun, right? But Left 4 Dead 2 really does a good job in forcing the players to actually work together and make that actually fun to help each other out. Where if someone gets pinned by a smoker, then the dynamic changes. Where it's like, oh god, all right guys, we got to go back and help our like one teammate who got owned by the smoker. We got to deal with this horde. It creates a lot more interesting interactions for the players because not every player is doing the exact same thing or every level is the exact same. There's always something different. There's always a problem that needs to be solved, right? And that's what makes Left 4 Dead 2 so fun. So, beside that, obviously, there's a lot of other things as well I can go into. The player has a massive amount of items and weapons to choose from, but the player is either gaining or losing a vital one up when it comes to the outcome of a level. So, Left 4 Dead also has a good identity when it comes to like items to choose from and stuff, and this allows the player to obviously customize themselves and choose what they think is best. But also, there is no optimal loadout in a way. Obviously, yes, like there are objectively like weapons like the AK that are objectively the best weapons. But at the end of the day, really the player is choosing what weapons, just feel nice to use or the most accessible at that moment, really. What I mostly am referring to is things like the throwable items, like the health packs, like the defibrillator, like the pills, like the syringe, all those items create interesting dynamics for the player where they are making a choice to either, hey, do I want the health pack to heal myself or heal my teammates, or do I want the defibrillator where in a situation where we need all of us to be alive, and if one of us dies, we'll be able to bring him back as quickly as possible, giving our team more more substantive ability. So I think something like that is really interesting and something that not a lot of people I don't think talk about when it comes to Left 4 Dead. Also, Left 4 Dead does have a interesting mechanic where when it comes to pills and syringes, you could actually give your teammates a pill or syringe, which is also just really helpful and creates a fun dynamic when it comes to player interactions amongst one another. Where if you notice, like, oh, your friend like is super low in health, he doesn't have any healing items. You have a jar of pills. You could just give that to him, and he's able to heal up, and boom, he's able to keep walking and keep going. Another interesting thing as well is with Left 4 Dead is if players are low on health, they will actually their movement speeds will be heavily reduced, and that would actually be that is a really bad thing for the team because everyone has to slow down, which means more opportunities for special infected to uh, or just in general the infected to do more damage, to ruin team compositions. Just overall, if your team is moving slower, usually it leaves the team in general to be a lot more vulnerable. So it's actually incentivized to actually help your teammate out by actually sacrificing the pills that you have, so that injured teammate can actually keep up with y'all. That's what I mean by like this game rewards you as the player to not be selfish, right? And funnily enough, that leads to my next point. A selfish player negatively affects themselves and their teammates. So usually, every time you play Left 4 Dead, this whole arc of being the lone wolf, right? Like, what if a player wants to not care about their teammates? What's going to happen? Well, most of the time, their gaming experience is never going to go well because most of the time, their teammates are going to die, they're going to suffer, and they're not going to really have someone to help them out when they need to, or have healing items when they need it, or things like that, right? Those small little gestures, those small sacrifices that you yourself make will actually help the outcome of a match and will help your overall team to actually reach the end goal, right? So that's what I mean by a selfish player negatively affects themselves and their teammates. Because overall, Left 4 Dead punishes the selfish players, so a selfish play style. Um, an unselfish player will be a huge benefit for the team, making the player and their teammates happy and successful. So I hope you're getting the overall point where if you're being selfish in Left 4 Dead 2, you're going to have a miserable time. You're never going to win. Your teammates are going to hate you. You yourself are always going to be in a detriment because you're going to get pinned by a charger, and two of your teammates are dead, and your other teammate is off kind of by himself because you left him behind. So obviously, being a selfish player does not benefit, it makes your overall experience not fun. But if you're being unselfish and actually going out of your way to help your teammates make sacrifices for the betterment of other players, overall, you're going to have a better time and you're going to be rewarded for making those sacrifices. Because when that level ends and you knew that you were able to save your own teammates uh, behind, this has to be PG-13, your own teammate, right? You're gonna feel that satisfaction like, oh my god, I feel great. Like I was able to save all my teammates and he came back to save me and I saved him and I gave him those pills and now he's moving along with the team and we'll keep moving forward and I'm defending my low HP teammate and he offered me like pills when I like or a syringe or whatever and he had a Molotov which helped with the tank. So like it all works together to create the best co-op experience, at least I have ever played in a video game, where I could literally join with a bunch of random people and still have a fun time, right? But at the end, if you really think about it, I'm just babysitting them. I'm making sure where they're at. I'm making sure if one isn't being pinned down. I'm making sure if my teammates are being healed and they're fine and if they're keeping up. Like but it makes it incredibly rewarding and it makes it fun. It makes it fun. And you could even say how that idea alone is something that's not supposed to be fun. Like really, like most like seriously, some of the most common sentiment when it comes to game design is when has to take care of another player or an NPC. And those are often the points where most people would say are the worst points when it comes to playing any video game. But Left 4 Dead makes it literally the entire point and makes it fun. That has to be an incredible success when it comes to game design. So overall, um, that is basically all I have to say. I think it's that's all I have to say. Yeah, Left 4 Dead 2 is probably one of the greatest video games ever. It is a masterclass when it comes to four-player co-op multiplayer fun. It is an incredible game, and not many games have been able to recreate its charm. Hell, even the own developers, Turtle Rock Studios, tried to, and they failed, like really badly, sadly. And there's just an inherently really solid design when it comes to Left 4 Dead 2. And I'm hoping that at least this video brings awareness to the game's design. I know this is very um unprofessional. This is not like pre-recorded or edited or whatever. But this is just me just expressing my genuine love and appreciation for Left 4 Dead 2 and Valve as game designers back in what was it, like 2009 when this game released? And my God, I just hope that games like Left 4 Dead 2 still continue. So that is all I have to say. Um, so yeah, I hope that you have a great day and I don't know, enjoy the rest of your day. I don't know, enjoy life. But I'm out. See ya.